Hey, welcome back. I haven't posted in a long while, so a big thank you to everyone who has stuck around. Or maybe you just didn't realize you're still subscribed? Well, be sure to stick around anyway, because I'm getting back on track with posting regularly. And just like before, I'll be sharing helpful fitness tips. And also, I can't do the hot girl stuff, so yeah, only practical stuff here. To get it all started, here's a leg workout you can try. There are just 5 exercises. I'll explore some common mistakes you should look out for, along with practical tips that have worked for me. First, I'm doing the Romanian deadlift or RDL for my glutes and hamstrings. I work with 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps, and that's typically what I do for most exercises. I'm doing the barbell RDL today, but another variation I really like is the Smith RDL. Dumbbell RDLs are an option too, but I can't use as much weight on them and I'm not a huge fan of hauling heavy dumbbells across the gym. For the RDL, focus on getting your hip hinge right. Don't worry, it's straightforward. Just bend your knees slightly and push your butt straight back. Make sure your hips travel back as far as you can bring them. That's how you maximize your hip hinge, and that's what you want for RDLs. Now, let us talk about some common mistakes for RDL. First mistake, letting the bar drift forward and away from your legs. This makes your setup less stable as the weight pulls you forward and makes balancing harder. Here's a tip to fix this. Think about pulling the bar towards your body. Now, to be clear, what you want is for the bar to be as close to your skin as possible, while being able to glide smoothly. You shouldn't be forcefully dragging the bar against your skin throughout. That's gonna hurt. If it helps, you can also think about squeezing your lats to pin the bar against your body. Here, it should feel like your lats are being packed downwards. Fixing this mistake should allow you to move the bar more smoothly and efficiently. Second mistake, going so deep that you can't handle it. Okay, just so you know, I'm talking about RDLs here. I know there are many videos out there showing insane depths on the RDL. It looks amazing, but honestly, you don't have to go that far if you're trying to build muscle. Instead, focus on maintaining a strong neutral back throughout. If you need to round your back just to go deeper, stop. A tip I learned early on was to keep lowering the bar until my hips can't move back any further, and that's as low as you need the bar to go. Any lower and you start to involve your lower back muscles more. Of course, going low isn't necessarily a bad thing, but my focus here is targeting glutes and hamstrings. I find that stopping at this step allows me to use the most weight without being limited by the strength on my lower back. Third mistake, not bracing my core. This mistake is harder to spot because it's about what you're doing internally. To brace your core, just pretend like you're going to get punched in the core. The outward push that you feel in your core is what you're looking for. Okay, I know some of you can't feel it, so let's get a little more graphic. Imagine you're in the toilet and trying to poop. Pay attention to the instinctive patterning and pushing around your core just before the big squeeze. Yep, that's what you want on your RDL. I know. It's terrifying that you can cue it this way. If you're actually trying this now, be sure to leave a comment below. Alright, moving on to the next exercise, leg press. For leg press, I do 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps to target my quads and hamstrings. I like leg presses for the stability and how close they let me get to failure. The setup for leg press is pretty straightforward too, just a few tiny details. Start with lowering the backrest so you can get a full RM. Then, choose your preferred racking position. I like to use the lower setting so I get a good idea of my positioning at the bottom. Of course, this one's personal preference, so try it out. Lastly, make sure you pull on the handles before starting. This keeps your torso stable and prevents your butt from coming off the seat when you're lowering the weights. One of the mistakes I had early on with leg press was letting my knees cave. Caving knees limit how efficiently and safely you can push. That's why it's important to fix this early on, especially since you can handle quite a bit of weight on leg presses. To fix this, focus on pushing your knees out. At the same time, ensure that the weight is evenly distributed on each foot. You shouldn't feel like you're pushing off more on certain parts of your foot. Together, these keep your feet and knees as stable as they can be. The more stable they are, the better your leg presses. If you're still working on your leg press technique, something that really helped me was to pause in the bottom position. Physically, the slight pause gave me a chance to check my form and ensure I was keeping it clean. Mentally, it gave me the confidence that the bottom position wasn't that scary and that I had the ability to press myself out. Now, moving on to 2 leg exercises I wouldn't miss on legs day. For me, the leg extension is a must-have on legs day. I do 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps here. Leg extensions target my quads and do something that squats cannot, and that's training the rectus femoris. That's the strip of muscle sitting right on top of your thighs. This muscle is important if you're trying to make your quads pop. I love the leg extension for how simple and quick it is to set up. Set your backrest far back enough such that when you're seated, as much of your thigh is supported as possible. This leaves just the knees hanging over. Next, set your shin pad so that it lands comfortably above your ankles. Lastly, make sure you pull hard on the handles to stabilize your upper body and anchor yourself to the seat. A common mistake on leg extensions is not using the full ROM. This often happens when you use a weight that's too heavy for you. Instead of reaching the top of the leg extension, you're forced to stop short. The fix is easy. Use a lighter weight and focus on squeezing your quads all the way up. And you could even pause at the top to gain better control of the movement. Just note that some leg extension machines don't allow you to straighten completely, so just go as far as your machine allows you to. Another common leg extension mistake is swinging the weight too fast. I know it's super tempting to let the weight free fall and only have to worry about bringing it up again, but don't do that. Instead, focus on slowing down when lowering the weight. It doesn't have to be painfully slow, you just want it to be nice and controlled. Okay, I'm not sure how I can say this right, but you shouldn't be jerking about violently. If you are, you might be going too fast. Alright, we've covered leg extension, so let's move on to leg curls. You probably already know this. Leg curls are a great way to target your hamstrings. I do 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps for this. The leg curl complements other hamstring exercises such as RDL. You see, other exercises target the hamstrings when they're lengthened. For the leg curl, it's the opposite. It works the hamstrings hardest when they're shortened. And oh, the leg curl targets the hamstrings through a knee movement rather than a hip movement. Alright, the point is simple. The leg curl is pretty unique in what it has to offer, so you shouldn't miss it. Now, there are 2 types of leg curls, seated and lying. I'm doing the seated version here, and while you might have heard that the seated one is potentially better for building muscle, don't worry too much about that. Just do the variation that you prefer, or even better, do both. Setting up the leg curl is pretty easy. Start with setting a backrest such that your knees are aligned with the moving joint of the machine. Next, set your shin pad to be just above your ankles. Lastly, get comfortable and secure your thighs. Make sure it's as tight as possible because your quads will need to stay anchored against it. Just like the leg extension, a common mistake on leg curl is half wrapping, and it's usually for the same reason as well, using too much weight. To fix this, just drop the weight and focus on using the full ROM. If you're having trouble, slow down the movement so you can better control it. Another common mistake for leg curls is the caving of knees. This happens by instinct, so you'll need to pay a little more attention here if you're new to leg curls. Having caved knees limits how efficient your force production is and how much weight you can handle. Don't worry though, the fix is simple. Push your knees out, making sure your knee lines up with your ankle in a straight line. Another way to think about it is to keep your knees pointing straight up. This shouldn't be too tricky, but you do have to slow down your reps to get a good feel of it at the start. Okay, we're done with 4 exercises and down to our last, everyone's favorite, cable glute kickback. I work with 3 sets of 8 to 12 reps for glute kickbacks. It's a super popular exercise because, well, glutes. But despite how easy it looks, there's a lot you should pay attention to if you want to make the most of them. Let's start with the setup. With the glute kickback, one of the most important tips I got was to stand higher. Use a weight plate, gym floor pad, step board, or anything firm enough. Next, set the pulley around ankle height. Going any higher will give you a weird starting position. From there, just make sure you maintain a very slight bend in your knees throughout, and you're good to go. Now, here's why it helps to stand higher. This eliminates 2 common issues you might face. First, having your foot scrape against the floor mid-rep. Second, having to bend your knee more just to accommodate the height. Either one of these feels awkward and hard to balance, and while they're not deal breakers, they're super easy to avoid. So yeah, just stand higher. Now, this is something worth mentioning. With cable glute kickbacks, you get to choose the direction you're kicking in, straight back or slightly to the side. Kicking straight back lets you emphasize the gluteus maximus better, and that's the largest butt muscle you have. In comparison, kicking more to the side helps you emphasize the gluteus medius and minimus. These are your smaller butt muscles. This means you can choose the direction you prefer to kick in based on the training goals. For me, I like to kick to the side, since I already have enough exercises targeting my gluteus maximus. I prefer to have my glute kickback to pick up the slack on those smaller butt muscles. Okay, now let's talk about 2 common mistakes most people make on this exercise. The first mistake is arching your lower back as you swing back. This could be because you're swinging back too violently, not bracing your core, or a combination of both. I used to make this mistake as I didn't think too much about the movement. I just wanted to swing the weight up. Thankfully, the fix isn't too difficult. You just need to do two things. Brace your core and focus on contracting your glutes. Remember the pooping cue from before? Yes, do that so that you can maintain a strong, neutral back. And make sure you're contracting your glutes hard at the top. This helps you control the whole movement better. Now, another mistake I made on glute kickbacks was this, hip twisting. I thought the more the merrier, so I opened my hips and saw my leg as high as I could. I felt like I was dancing, but I don't think you're targeting your glutes very well here. So yeah, don't do it. Instead, make sure your hips are squared and facing forward throughout. Make sure the movement is limited to the hip joint that's being worked. Alright, that's it. I've shared 5 leg exercises I do. If you're keen on hearing about my other leg exercises, leave me a comment. I hope there was something helpful or at least amusing here. Thank you for sticking to the end and stay around for more. Bye!